Hello everyone, welcome to the another episode of P-Talk organized by the Asian Productivity Organization. I am Niranja Jayakodi, Director, National Productivity Secretariat of Sri Lanka. Today I am honored to be a moderator of this session. P-Talk is a platform where the ideas of productivity related matters are being discussed with the expert of the respective field and share their latest knowledge and experience with us. In that context, today we are going to discuss on the topic of unlocking the productivity in green supply chain management. To discuss this matter, we are pleased to welcome one of the most experienced scholars in this field, not only in Sri Lanka, but also with the sound international experience. He is Professor Saman Yapa from University of Sri Jayewardenepura, Sri Lanka. Ayuban, sir. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Niranja.
Welcome to the P-Talk, sir. Let me introduce something about the Professor Yapa. He is currently working as a Professor, Department of Decision Science, University of Sri Jayewardenepura. And he is the Director, Staff Development Center of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. He obtained the PhD from the Sheffield Hallam University, UK, and the MBA from the Postgraduate University of the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. He has more than 30 years experience as an academic. He has published research articles locally as well as internationally in the area of supply chain management, quality management, enterprise resource planning, and sustainability. So, today we are honored to share your views on the green supply chain in the context of productivity. So, if you are fine, I will ask some questions one by one, sir, regarding the topic, and you can deliver your presentation according to that. It will help to our viewers to understand the essence of it. Is it okay, sir?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, as an introduction, could you please describe us what is supply chain and what does it mean? And what is the importance of supply chain management?
Okay. Thank you, Niranja, for your kind words. And I must thank the Asian Productivity Organization for inviting me to deliver this lecture. So it is a timely topic, and we are talking about climate change and everything. So green supply chain management and its impact on the productivity that we are going to discuss today. But before we go to the green supply chain, we must know what is supply chain. Nowadays, supply chain has become like a common word, especially after the COVID pandemic. Everyday news, you find the term supply chain. So what is supply chain? Supply chain is all facilities, functions, activities associated with flow and transformation of goods and services from raw materials to customer, as well as associated information flow. When you look at this supply chain, we start with the raw materials. Then we get the raw materials from our suppliers. They will supply raw materials to the manufacturers. Manufacturer manufactures goods. They are distributed to maybe to the distribution centers or to the warehouses or to the dealers. Then that will be sent to the retailers. And finally, as customers, we buy the goods maybe from a retail outlet. So that is a supply chain. In a supply chain, it is clear that materials move forward. Source is the purchasing, then make and deliver. Materials move forward, and when you buy something, you have to pay money to the supermarket. They have to pay back money to the distributor. They have to pay back money to the manufacturer. They have to pay back money to the supplier. Like that, cash or credit moves backward. Then the other thing moves along this supply chain is the information. Information moves both ways. Various information moves both ways. So I will explain you the concept of supply chain by using an example. If you look at the automobile supply chain, an automobile, to produce automobile, we need thousands of parts, thousands of materials. So we start by ordering getting materials from the manufacturers' suppliers. Then they are manufactured maybe in Japan, maybe in India, maybe in Germany, maybe in some other country. They are produced. That is the next stage. Then they are distributed to the dealers, sometimes within the country, and nowadays maybe to dealers or the customers in other countries. A car may be produced in Japan, but they may be finally consumed or the used by a customer in Sri Lanka or India or some other country. Then the last stage is deliver the vehicle to the customers. So this is a supply chain starting from the raw material suppliers, manufacturing, then distribution and delivery. So this is a very simple representation, but there are so many other parties involved, like the distributors, then the logistics suppliers, warehouses, even the banking. The goods are going through the customs, ports, maybe shipping are involved. So it's a very complex process, but simply I have explained what is a supply chain by using this example. Then why the supply chain is important? Nowadays, you all know competition is very high and the customers are very knowledgeable. They can check the quality of the products, cost of the products, compare products by using their mobile phone. So now there is a big pressure for company to be more competitive in terms of cost as well as their quality. So why the supply chain is important? The first one is the cost efficiency. It is not possible to reduce the cost by just reducing the cost only at the manufacturing stage. We have to reduce the cost along the supply chain, because finally, say if you are paying $100 for a product, that all $100 will come through this the supply chain. So we must try to reduce the cost along the supply chain, from our suppliers to the distribution to the retailers. We must try to reduce the cost. Then the quality, very important. We have to ensure the quality of the products along the supply chain. If we get the good raw materials, then we can produce good finished goods. Or else, say for example, if you take ice cream, a company may produce very high quality ice cream, but in the transportation, if they are not stored at the right condition, if in the supermarket, if they are not stored at the right condition, then the customer may not get the right quality, high quality ice cream. So supply chain management is very important to ensure quality. Then thirdly, time to market, lead time. Nowadays, customers' preferences change very quickly. They want the products very quickly and their preferences change, the fashions change. So the time between design and the delivery is very short. Long time back, it took maybe years to design and to deliver them. But nowadays, it is not like that. Customers, we change the models quickly, we change the fashions quickly, customers want products quickly. So we have to reduce the lead time along the supply chain. Then finally, nowadays, we are worried about, as the world, as the customers, as the industry, we all are worried about the climate or the earth, sustainability. So in order to reduce the environmental impact, we need to maintain the sustainability along the supply chain. So these are the main aspects of supply chain. That is why supply chain management is very important. I think you have got some idea about supply chain.
Thank you, Professor, about that interesting introduction regarding supply chain management. I think according to that, the concept and its practice are much more crucial to ensure the smooth running of a business while integrating the social and environmental consideration, I think. Okay. In the latter part of your presentation, sir, you mentioned that sustainable supply chain management, in other terms, green supply chain management. So what do you mean by that? Could you please elaborate on that?
Yes. So earlier I explained the importance of supply chain. Then we go to what is meant by green supply chain. There is a difference between green supply chain and sustainable supply chains, but mainly we focus on green supply chain. One of the issues with the traditional supply chain was organizations paid more attention to the bottom line. If you are familiar with the heard the term bottom line. Bottom line is in a annual report or in a financial statement, there is a row for the income or the profit. Revenue is called the top line. Then when you deduct expenses from the revenue, it is called the profit. Traditionally, organizations paid main attention to the profit side or the financial side. But now there are arguments again just concentrating only on the profit side. John Elkington in 1994, he introduced a concept called triple bottom line approach. Profit is also included. There are 3 P's. One is a profit, people, and the planet. Organizations should focus not only on profit, but also they have to consider about the society or the people and the planet also. So the profit is the financial return an organization generates for shareholders. Then the people is an organization's commitment to positively impact in the society. And thirdly, the planet, organization's effect on the environment. So that is called the triple bottom line approach. What are the key components of this triple bottom line approach? First one is people. What is our social responsibility? Organizational social responsibility focus on the social impact of organizations, their employees, their customers, their communities, because we get all our resources, people, materials, everything from the society. So we have a responsibility to the society. Some of the examples of social responsibilities: fair labor practices, contributing to the community, improving health and education, fair trade practices, we pay a right price to the farmers, and things like that. All that will come under social responsibility. Then secondly, we have the planet or the earth, environmental sustainability. The focus is on sustainable environmental practices like reducing waste, minimizing ecological footprint or reducing carbon footprint, conserving natural resources, contributing to the overall health of the planet. And the goal is to ensure that business operates do not harm the environment and ideally leave it in a better state. Because we actually borrow the materials from the future generations. So we have to think about responsibly use these materials for the consumption. So responsible consumption, and how do we finally recycle the materials we used. All these will come under second aspect of planet. But as an organization, we have to make money as well. Otherwise, there is no survival. So the profit aspect is ensure that businesses are not only focusing on being good corporate citizens, but are also profitable and sustainable from a financial perspective. So we have to make money. We have to earn money for our shareholders, for our employees. We have to make money. So that is a third aspect. So these are the 3 aspects, key components: profit, planet, and the people. Then with the TBL or the triple bottom line approach, there are some shift in the corporate strategies. Corporates now adopt this triple bottom line approach. Some of the things that have been changed over the past few years: adoption of renewable energy. Now there is a big demand for renewable energy like wind power, solar power, etc. Then waste reduction initiatives, reducing waste, recycling, then sustainable supply chain management. We will discuss more about these aspects later. Then community engagement programs as well. We get the ideas from the communities, and we get the ideas from our stakeholders. We get their engagement also in recycling, reusing, reforestation, and things like that. So then the green supply chain emerged with this triple bottom line approach. It is an approach that integrates environmentally sustainable practices and consideration into every stage of the supply chain, from product design and sourcing to production, distribution, and disposal. Now, earlier also there were some sustainable practices, green practices in individual organizations. Like manufacturing, they may have used renewable energy. But what do you mean by green supply chain is along the supply chain. Along the supply chain, we adopt green practices. From the designing stage, we design the product in a way that less resources are used. In the manufacturing, in the use, then at the end of the useful life cycle also, what you are going to do with this product, that we keep in mind. Then we get the raw materials from the green sources. Then in the distribution, lot of carbon emission is there in the distribution process. So how do we reduce the carbon emission? Then when the product comes into the end of the life cycle, how do we put these materials back into the production system? So when you put all these together, rather than individually optimize the use of green practices or use green practices in individual organizations, green supply chain management is using green supply chain along the supply chain. Then what are the goals of a green supply chain? Reduce the environmental impact, then conserve resources, comply with the environmental regulations. Now the governments have introduced many environmental regulations. We have to stick to these environmental regulations, not to bypass them or to find some loopholes, but to genuinely comply to the environmental regulations. Sometimes not only the minimum level, but voluntarily organizations comply with the environmental regulations, more stringent environmental regulations voluntarily. Then meet the growing demand for eco-friendly products and services. Now there is a growing group of customers. They look for eco-friendly products and the services. So meet the growing demand for eco-friendly products and services. I think now you have some idea about green supply chain management and their practices.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now it's clear that the green supply chain management is based on the triple bottom line approaches. In other words, that integrates the environmentally sustainable practices and consideration into every stage of the supply chain management. So what are the key components of green supply chain management, sir?
Okay. So we now discuss about the green supply chain management practices. Then what are the key components of green supply chain, from starting from raw materials to the delivery to the end of the life? So what are the key components? First one is sustainable procurement. We buy raw materials from suppliers who have adhered to the environmentally responsible practices. We don't say that it is not our responsibility. We adhere to the environmental regulations, so we don't have to worry about our suppliers. It is not the case. So we get the raw materials from the suppliers, those who adhere to the environmental. They also practice the green supply chain. So then it becomes a green supply chain management. Then second stage, green manufacturing. During the manufacturing process, we reduce waste, conserve energy, and minimize the carbon footprint. We emit during the manufacturing process, companies emit a lot of carbon dioxide, methane, and things like that. So we try to minimize carbon footprint during the during the manufacturing process. Then we adopt energy efficient technologies and process throughout the supply chain. Throughout the supply chain, we reduce the carbon emissions and minimize resource consumption. We can use more energy efficient technologies. Energy efficient, like say for example, a simple example is like we can use LED bulbs, more energy efficient. That will reduce the carbon emission overall. Then next one is waste reduction. Redesigning the packaging in a way that you know that when you buy something, sometimes the packaging is bigger than the product. For a small product, it is packaged in a very large plastic packaging. So we redesign the package in order to reduce the packaging, because once you open the product, we throw away this packaging. But that will add a lot of plastics and other materials to the environment. Then reduce scrap and reverse logistics for product take back and recycling. That is called, traditionally we had cradle to grave approach. That is, we extract the raw materials, manufacture them, use them, dump them. But now the new approach is called cradle approach. When a product comes to the end of the useful life, again the materials are added to the production process. That is called cradle to cradle approach. For example, when your refrigerator comes to the end of the useful life, sometimes even it has not come to the useful life, end of the useful life, we want to change it. Or your mobile phone. I am sure that if you open your drawer, there are many old mobile phones. So we have taken materials from the environment to produce these goods. Cradle to cradle approach is when the product comes to the end of useful life, we extract materials again and put them back to the production process. And transportation optimization. As I mentioned earlier, transportation is one of the biggest polluters. So we try to optimize the routes. Say, for example, 2 or 3 companies, if they distribute goods, if they use small vehicles, all of them may go half empty. But rather than that, they can put them together and they can use one vehicle. That will reduce the traffic problems, and also that will reduce the carbon emission as well. Then we can use alternative fuel, like say for example, maybe solar power or electricity, or you can use biodiesel, more eco-friendly alternative fuel rather than the fossil fuel. Then eco-friendly vehicles to lower emissions, like hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles, or now we are talking about hydrogen vehicles, etc. More eco-friendly vehicles to lower the emissions and to decrease the fuel consumption also, another aspect of another component of green supply chain management. And life cycle assessment. As I mentioned earlier, when we design a product, we have to consider the environmental impact along the supply chain, or along the product life cycle. From the during the manufacturing, that should consume less energy. During the use also, say for example, if it is a washing machine, that should use less water, less electricity. Then at the end of the life cycle, or in the transportation, we must design it in a way that will reduce the transportation needs, or the more goods can be stored in one place. Then when the product comes to the end of the life cycle, how we can extract the parts, as I mentioned earlier, cradle to cradle approach. How do we extract these parts and put them back into the production process? So theoretically, we will not need new materials to produce goods. Then the eco-friendly product design. We can use recyclable materials. Nowadays, like say for example, scrap is used to produce like plastic bottles. I'll give you one example later. Plastic bottles, the scrap materials, they can be converted into again the bottles or some other materials. Then minimizing the use of hazardous substances, like the various pesticides are used, various other hazardous substances are used in production process, maybe like mercury. So we design the product in a way these things can be reduced. Then product recovery and recycling is very important. That is called reverse logistics as well. Traditional supply chain, we have a forward logistic. That is from raw materials to manufacturing, delivered to the customer, then the product is dumped or thrown away. But reverse logistic is when the product comes to the customer, end of useful life, again it is sent back to the maybe for repair and use it, maybe reuse it, or maybe put the parts back into the recycle them and put the parts back into the production process, etc. Then collaboration and transparency. It is very important. Green supply chain management, along the supply chain, there is a transparency. We share the information. We work with our stakeholders. We work with our suppliers. We work with our distributors. We work with the logistic supplier. There is a transparency in the supply chain. And finally, regulatory compliance and risk management. We have to adhere to the government regulations, environmental regulations. There are many environmental regulations now. We have to have policies in our organizations. We have to adhere to the standards, and we have to adhere to the laws of the land. So these are the key components of green supply chain management, Niranja.
Oh, thank you, sir. Let me summarize the components that you have mentioned in this area: sustainable procurement, green manufacturing, energy efficiency, waste reduction, eco-friendly transportation, life cycle assessment, eco-friendly product designing, collaboration and transparency, and regulatory compliance and risk management. As there are so many factors to be considered, so my next question is, in this competitive environment of doing businesses, so are there real-life examples or companies who are applying this concept of green supply chain management?
Yes. So I'll give you a few examples. One example is IKEA. IKEA is the largest furniture manufacturer in the world. They are in the business of, using wood, or they are actually involved in deforestation. But they are committed to using only renewable and recycled materials by 2030. They work closely with the suppliers to ensure sustainable practices. They train their suppliers. They conduct training programs for their suppliers. They get the raw materials only from the sustainable forest, not from natural forest, but sustainable forest. So they responsibly manage forest and use the less water and energy in production process. Here you can see they design all of their products in a way that it can be carried out very in a compact manner. That is called flat pack design. So even a sofa or even a large table, they design in a way that is called the flat pack design. Then many number of lorry loads can be taken out of the roads because of this flat pack design. And also they were the first company to charge for these carrier bags, because they wanted to reduce the use of carrier bags. Then they didn't make money out of that one. They donated all this money to the charities. But because customers had to pay for this one, then it discouraged the customers to use the carrier bags or reuse the carrier bags they had earlier. Then they are using renewable energy like wind power, solar power in their warehouses as well as in their stores and during the distribution process as well. Then the other example is Walmart. They had a project called Gigaton. Their target is to remove 1 gigaton greenhouse gas emissions from global supply chain, not only by Walmart, but along the supply chain. They want to reduce the greenhouse gases. Here we don't have to go through everything, but here you can see one of their suppliers. They have saved 8,100 gallons of fuel. Then they have recycled 32 metric tons of materials. Then they have avoided 136 metric tons of virgin plastic, etc. That is by one of their suppliers. And they have developed a sustainability index to measure and improve the sustainability of the products. Then the third example is Patagonia. Patagonia is one of the companies producing outdoor sports equipments and the dressers clothes. So they use sustainable materials like organic cotton and the recycled polyester to ensure the supply chain partners adhere to strict environmental and social standards. They actually encourage customers to repair and use the old clothes and the old gears and things like that. So they promote to use old materials again. So probably that may not good for their business, but they encourage the customers to use the old ones rather than throw them away. So that is called repair and care. Then worn wear program. Then they have recycle materials. Then they have closed loop initiatives. As I mentioned earlier, when the product comes into the end of the life cycle, then again they collect them and use them again. The next one is Nike. I think we all know about Nike. They aim to use 100% sustainable cotton and recycled polyesters in its product. So that is called move to zero. They want to reduce carbon footprint. They want to use recycled materials. So they have a program called move to zero. Then Unilever is another large FMCG company. They have this Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, improving health and well-being of the customers, reducing environmental impact, enhancing livelihoods, etc. So they have many greenhouse, reducing the greenhouse gases and reducing the water, reducing the waste. So like that, they have a program to reduce the impact of their activities on the environment. Then this is a Chinese company called Green Eco Manufacture. They collect tons of thrown away electronics and batteries and remakes them into new products or extracts the critical minerals from them to use again. That is what I said earlier, cradle to cradle approach. They are adopting this cradle to cradle approach. Tons of electronic materials, electronic waste is a big problem. They collect them and batteries and remake them into new products. So if it can't be used, then they will extract the minerals and use them again. Probably you may think that it is this used or these concepts are implemented only in large countries or the developed countries, but I have taken two examples from Sri Lanka, a developing country. MAS is one of the largest garment manufacturers in Sri Lanka. They are supplying mainly to retail outlets in UK and USA. So they have, with their program called Planet Change for Good, they have reduced the emissions by 57%, reduced the waste by 43%, chemicals by 98%, then water by 39%, and also they have improved the biodiversity by reforestation as well. Then this is a kind of a very special company that is called Eco Spindles. They collect all the the PET bottles and convert them into plastics as well as into yarn. The Sri Lankan cricket team, they are wearing their uniform, or the dress they are wearing is made up of this yarn or the threads produced in this company. So they convert these plastic bottles into yarn or the threads or the plastics. So then again, these plastics are again added into the production process, right? Then if I talk a little bit about the food supply chain, probably we may think that the food supply chain is very natural and therefore the environmental impact is not that big. But it is not the case, because especially animal farming, animals, they emit a lot of methane, and during the production process we emit a lot of carbon dioxide. We need a lot of grassland, then they emit a lot of carbon dioxide. So likewise, this food supply chain, there are many environmental impacts. So now there are many initiatives to reduce the impact of food supply chain, from production to the processing, distribution also, reduce the distribution, then use the energy efficient methods, then responsible consumption. We know that food waste is a big problem. So to reduce the food waste, then again, when it comes to the end of the life cycle, nutrition, like producing the biogases, then use them for energy production, etc. So here also they use this cradle to cradle approach. But food supply chain is a very important supply chain, But we should not think that that's because it is very natural, that is not harmful to the environment. There are a lot of harmful activities there, but now there are many initiatives. The agriculture industry has identified all these. They use new technologies and new initiatives to reduce the impact of the environmental impact. So that is some of the examples where there are many examples, but I have given you few.
Thank you, sir. It's sound interesting. And the essence of that is, according to my understand, so whatever the business you are doing and engaging in the future, it must be the comply with the growing demands for eco-friendly products and services, I think. Okay, sir. My next question is, in the beginning, you have described us the importance of triple bottom line approach in terms of planet, people, and profit in supply chain management. So my question is, how do you assess the impact of green supply chain management on triple bottom line?
As I mentioned earlier, there are three aspects. One is the planet, and the other one is people, and the other one is profit. So obviously, green supply chain will reduce the waste and pollution. That is good for the planet. Then conserve the resources like the the water, then the electricity, then the forest, seawater. So everything that is good for the planet. Then mainly the green supply chain, they contribute to the planet aspect. But nowadays, new research articles are coming up how the green supply chain will contribute to the social aspect as well. Because in the green supply, when the companies adopting green supply chain management, they adopt fair labor practices. Then also they train the employees. Then they get the involvement of the community engagement. Then they get the raw materials from the nearby companies, the communities. So all these will positively contribute to the society aspect. Then thirdly, the most the important aspect that we are going to discuss in next few minutes, economic aspect. So because of the less energy use, waste disposal, reduce of waste, then using more energy efficient methods, all these will contribute to the cost saving. And also nowadays, companies adopting green supply chain, they have a competitive advantage over the other companies, because now there are large percentage of customers, they appreciate the green supply chain management practices. So they buy products from these kind of companies. So that will give a better market share for us. And also that will reduce the risk as well. There are big fines for violating environmental regulations. Green supply chain management companies, they will adhere to the environmental regulations. So they have a less risk or no risk of get them fined or get the penalties. Then the brand reputation is damaged. So all these risks can be reduced or minimized if they adopt the green supply chain management practices. So this is the impact of green supply chain management on triple bottom line.
Thank you, sir. Now it's clear that how important of green supply chain management in triple bottom line. As far as concerned with the productivity aspect, in the context of productivity, we are concerned some concept like green productivity, lean management, efficiency of employee and their satisfaction, process improvement, Kaizen, innovation like concept. So my next question, as we are in a productivity talk, so what are the impact of green supply chain management practices on productivity? How does it affect to improve the productivity?
We all know that productivity is output to input ratio. So how we can get more output with less inputs? So what is the impact of green supply chain management practices on productivity? As I mentioned earlier, the first one is cost reduction. Since we are reducing the energy consumption, we are optimizing transportation routes, we are combining vehicles and we will minimize the waste. All that will lead to cost reduction. or our input is reduced. Then we are using our energy, water, raw materials efficiently. We reduce the scrap, we reduce the rework, all that will reduce the cost. So then our productivity is improved. Then we comply to the environmental regulations, we avoid fines and penalties, and we reduce the risk of non-compliance related cost. There are nowadays, especially in the European countries, there is a big fine if you violate environmental regulations. So that kind of cost will be reduced if you adhere to the green supply chain management practices. Then, as I mentioned earlier, if you adopt green supply chain management practices, then you can use it as a in your advertisement. You can use it to attract the customers, because now the customers are increasingly environmentally conscious. They favor the companies who are committed to the sustainability. So as a result, the company's reputation and the brand image is improved. Then the customers become more loyal customers. New customers are attracted. As a result, our market share will go up. So that will lead to more productivity. We get the economies of scale when our market share is improved. So we get the economies of scale. Then during the green supply chain management, we adopt various new innovative methods. So that will give in the product design, manufacturing process, supply chain management, we adopt various innovative aspects. Then that will reduce the environmental footprint. I'll come back to the next few minutes. Then that will give a competitive edge in the market and attract environmentally conscious customers. Then we get the stakeholder engagement. We work with the customers, we work with the suppliers, we work with the other communities. So that will foster collaboration. That will create a trust between the customers and the suppliers and the communities and the organization. So the long-term relationships will have a positive impact on our productivity. Then what is the impact of reducing the carbon footprint? With the implementation of green supply chain management, our carbon footprint is reduced. That is emission of greenhouse gases that will be reduced. As a result, when you reduce the carbon footprint, then we use energy efficiency. We use efficient energy. So we invest in energy efficient equipments that will reduce the energy consumption and the operational cost and also lowers the carbon emission. Then we optimize the production process, minimize the energy waste, and optimize the resources, reduce the waste. That will lead to the productivity gains. Then we are using renewable energy. Initially, there may be an initial cost, but we know that by using solar power and wind power, our cost will be reduced. Then the carbon emission is reduced as well as our cost is reduced. So our productivity will go up. And reducing the carbon impact again through the sustainable supply chain management, we work with our suppliers, supplier collaboration. Along the supply chain, we work with our raw material suppliers, we work with our distributors, then we work with our transport service providers. So that will reduce the packaging waste. All that will lead to cost reduction and carbon dioxide emission or the carbon footprint reduction. Then another aspect is local sourcing. We buy raw materials from nearby suppliers. So as a result, our transportation cost is reduced and also our lead time is also reduced. So that will enhance the overall productivity. And another aspect is we all heard about, if you are interested about productivity, we all heard about lean manufacturing. The objective of lean manufacturing is to eliminate waste. That will improve the resource efficiency and reduce the environmental impact so that our productivity will be improved. And another important aspect is closed loop systems. I think I mentioned that one earlier as well. When the product comes to the end of the product useful life cycle, we can reuse them, we can recycle them, then we can extract the materials, whatever the available, then we can add them into the production process. As I mentioned earlier, that is called the cradle to cradle approach. So that will reduce our cost drastically and our efficiency will be improved. So the environment impact is reduced as well as our productivity is improved. And what is the impact of employee engagement and training? Employees are also trained. We engage employees in the sustainable initiatives. It is not kind of a forcing them, but we train them, we educate them, we aware them, and what are the advantages of using them. Sometimes some organizations, they give energy efficient bulbs to the employees, so that will create a environmentally responsible culture, not in the organization, but also at homes as well. So training on energy saving practices, incentive programs tied to sustainable goals, all that will lead to a culture of environmental responsibility that will enhance the productivity as well as that will boost the morale as well. And nowadays we use technology for green supply chain management, Internet of Things, data analytics, and things like that. We can, by using these data analytics, big data analytics, we can optimize energy usage. Then we can identify inefficiencies. We can identify some patterns. Not only that, we can predict some maintenance needs. For example, probably you can remember a few years back, British Petroleum, they had to pay a large fine because of a leak of oil in the sea. But if they could have predicted the maintenance needs earlier, probably they could have prevented that kind of accidents. So all that leads to reduce the carbon footprint and also productivity improvements. So I like to acknowledge and give credit to the respective copyright holders of the publicly available images I used in this presentation. So all copyright and intellectual property rights for these images belong to the respective owners.
Thank you, sir.
That is all for the presentation.
Thank you very much, sir. I think you have covered all the productivity concept that I have mentioned earlier. And it means whatever the business we are engaging in future, we must have to foster collaboration, trust, and long-term partnership positively with our stakeholders to enhance your reputation and brand image, I think. Thank you very much for the presentation and your views. I believe our viewers are able to learn how important of green supply chain management in future business and its role in productivity. Thank you once again for the very comprehensive presentation and responses of my question, what I gave to you. And I believe our viewers find very interesting thoughts on this important subject, sir. Today, we are unable to get real-time question from our viewers as this is a recording. Instead of that, I will ask some quick question from our professor. And we are encouraging our viewers to leave a comment if you have any further clarification or any comments. Professor might be able to reply in that regards in later.
Certainly.
Yeah. So my first question is, what are the challenges faced by your organization in implementing green supply chain management?
Yes. Whatever we say about green supply chain management, initial cost may be high because, like, say, for example, like green energy or renewable energy, they are not still cheap. So especially the initial investment may be high. Probably they may find it difficult to investment in these kind of energy efficient or the renewable energy. That is a one challenge. Then the second challenge may be get the involvement of the whole supply chain. Like, say, big organization, they may be able to become or apply or adopt green supply chain management practices, but how do they find suppliers? Those who adhere to the green supply chain management is a big issue. Then how do they find distributors who adhere to the green supply chain management may be an issue. So how do we find our partners who are thinking in the same line is a big challenge. And also another challenge may be uh, because we have a thinking paradigm. We have been used to that thinking paradigm for a long time. Then employees have got used to a certain way of doing things. Changing these things may be a big challenge because human nature is always there is a resistance to change. So we have to think the way, or we have to change the way we think, not only the managers but also the employees, but also the customers, the governments. All of them have to think differently if we have to adopt the green supply chain management, because if we adopt it in one organization, it is not a big issue. But when we try to adapt in through the whole supply chain, it may be challenging. And also, again, green, when we produce goods with green supply chain management practices, probably their cost may not be high in the initial stages. So that also may be an issue in the initial stage, because somewhere we have to start, but if the start is challenging, then that may be an issue.
Thank you, sir. That is clear. My next question is, we are talked about so many positive things and optimistic things regarding green supply chain management. Is there any negative impacts of green supply chain management practices?
Yes, especially nowadays, there are some arguments against green supply chain management practices as well. Say, for example, I mentioned that in order to reduce the carbon footprint, companies now try to buy raw materials from nearby suppliers. That is called earlier 1990s, 2000s, we had a practice called offshore. Then, like garment retailers, fashion retailers in UK, they used to get the garments from manufacturers in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, or some other countries. But now the trend is to get from the nearby countries. That is called the near-shore strategy. But with the near-shore, probably these developing countries, depending on these industries, they may lose orders. That may be a negative impact. Like, say, for example, Bangladesh, there are millions of people are engaged in the garment industry. So if the factories are closed in Bangladesh, that will have a negative impact on the Bangladesh society. It may be the same for Sri Lanka as well. I know some of Sri Lankan garment manufacturers, they have started now factories in Haiti, where it is close to United States, to reduce the carbon footprint. And so that may be one issue. Then another thing is, say, for example, whether it is really sustainability. Say, for example, we consider something like biodiesel. To produce biodiesel, we have to use a lot of grain like corn and things like that. Probably then that will lead to some food scarcity, because we are using this grain for producing biodiesel. So likewise, there are some negative impacts as well in green supply chain, as so we can identify some negative impacts as well.
Thank you, sir. It's clear about that negative impact. But the comparing with that negative impacts, we have much more beneficial and obligation to go for the green supply chain in the future, I think. So, can these practices adopted by the organization in developing countries like in Sri Lanka, like countries, is it possible, sir?
Yes, it is possible. Even small companies, medium companies, or even developing countries also, they also can adopt green supply chain management practices. But probably they can start with small changes. Like, say, for example, they can use more energy efficient practices. Then they can reduce waste. They can design products in a way that will reduce the scrap and waste. So they have to think about, rather than thinking big at the beginning, they can think some small changes they can use or they can practice to reduce the impact of their activities on the environment. So by that one, then they can reduce the cost, they can improve the productivity, then they can go for uh, larger initiatives. Then they can try to find suppliers from nearby places, those who are adopting uh, these green supply chain management practices. They can create some communities, those who are adopting these green supply chain management practices, and they can share their experiences. So, but in near future, now it will become a must for them also to adopt these green supply chain management practices rather than an option. So therefore, I think it is good for them to get ready for these changes. Then they will get a competitive advantage because they will be ahead of others when the time comes.
Yeah, that is clear. So in the productivity context, we also the teaching about the little improvement, like
Yes.
Kaizen. So we can adopt that kind of principles in this green supply chain management. So in the whatever the concept you have to when we come to the implementation, we have to obligate with the policy makers and the government. So, what is the role of government in implementing green supply chain management practices in
Yes.
organizations?
One thing they have to do is, it is their responsibility to prepare the policies and get the necessary acts passed by the parliament, so through the legislators, and implement them. And also they have to make sure that everyone will have a uh, play level playing field. Like, say for example, say some of the organizations, they adopt green supply chain management practices, then probably their cost has gone up. And some other competitors, they are not adopting green supply chain management practices, or they are violating the environment regulations. But if there is no penalty for them, there is no fine for them, then they will continue to do so. And also the company, those who are adopting green supply chain management, also, if they do not, if that is not fair for them, they also will give up these practices. So therefore, the government must uh, enact, then they must introduce new laws and regulations, always, as well as they have to implement, enforce them as well. Sometimes we know that, especially in the developing countries, we have some very strict rules and regulations, but they are not properly implemented. So therefore, implementing them is very important. That will create a level playing ground for all. Otherwise, the companies may not adopt these green supply chain management practices. And the second thing is, government can take initiatives to educate the public, and also the, especially maybe the school children and the universities. They can introduce, the government can introduce some courses, or maybe some uh, lessons in their school curriculum or university curriculum. Then when they come to the workforce, then they have an idea about these green supply chain management practices. That will be easy for organization, that will reduce their training cost, because from the school they have learned about these activities. So that is, I think, some of the things the governments can do.
Thank you, sir. You have clearly mentioned about the role of government and what is as a government and government organization to do this concept to be in real time, real life achievements. So you mentioned some organization adapting green supply chain management. But almost all of them are somewhat large scale multi-billionaire companies like this. Do you think whether small and medium sector organization also can implement this concept, green supply chain management in their organization?
Yes, there are many small organizations, they adopt green supply chain management practices, but probably they may not be able to, at the initial stage, they may not be able to say, for example, they may not be able to install solar power panels in their buildings or something like that. Probably their initial cost may be high, but still they can start from the small changes. They can think about some environmental friendly practices they can adapt. How they can, especially they can reduce the waste management. They can train their employees to reduce the waste. Even now, small organizations can use the technology, because now even the mobile phones can be used to reduce the environmental impact. Say, for example, they can reduce the use of paper. Paper waste can be reduced by using the new technologies, so that will not cost them millions or billions of rupees or whatever the money they have. So therefore, even the small sector organizations, they can implement them, but they have to think, or they have to identify what are the changes they can introduce into their organizations initially to reduce the environmental impact, then reduce the cost. That will improve the productivity. So it is kind of rollover thing and cycle. Then they can, as you mentioned earlier, like they can use Kaizen concept. Then you can gradually improve them. Then they can identify. First, they may start with some small changes. Then once they do it, then they can measure the success. Then they can go to the next level, etc. So they also will be able to implement it. But I agree with you. They may not be able to do it in the large scale at the beginning.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So now we have come to the end of the session today. We have spent almost all the 1 hour time so far. Professor Saman Yapa, thank you very much once again for your presentation and the time and insightful thoughts on P-Talk today. Any closing comments, sir?
Yeah, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. And I also must thank Niranja for excellent moderation. And I think now in the future, green supply chain management is not an option for organizations. It is a must. That is not because there are some regulations. That is not because we will be caught by the government organization. But really, we have to do something to the planet. We all live in this planet. We get all the materials from the planet. So we have to do it in the way that will create a minimum harm, or we must try to eliminate this any harm. So that will be good for the organization, that will be good for the planet, that will be good for the society. So I think this presentation will help them to get some idea about green supply chain management and how that will help them and how that will be beneficial to them financially as well as in other aspects as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much once again. And I wish you further success and good health in your future. Okay. Finally, I would like to thank all our viewers for participation and hope you enjoyed this today's session. And we look forward to see you in the future P-Talks. And don't forget to subscribe our APO YouTube channel. And this will keep in touch with our latest updates. I'm Niranja Jayakodi signing off with our APO production team in Tokyo. Have a good day. Take care.